Let's just hop right into The Descent, the first poem. The descent beckons. As the ascent beckoned, memory is a kind of accomplishment, a sort of renewal, even an initiation, since the spaces it opens are new places, inhabited by hordes, heretofore unrealized, of new kinds, since their movements are towards new objectives, even though formerly they were abandoned. No defeat is made up entirely of defeat, since the world it opens is always a place formerly unsuspected, a world lost, a world unsuspected, beckons to new places, and no whiteness lost is so white as the memory of whiteness. With evening, love wakens through its shadows, which are alive by reason of the sun shining, grow sleepy now and drop away from desire. Love without shadows stirs now, beginning to awaken as night advances. The descent, made up of despairs and without accomplishment, realizes a new awakening, which is a reversal of despair. For what we cannot accomplish, what is denied to love, what we have lost, in the anticipation, a descent follows, endless and indestructible. Daphne and Virginia. The smell of the heat is boxwood when rousing us. A movement of the air stirs our thoughts that had no life in them, to a life in which two women agonize. To live and breathe is no less, two young women. The box odor is the box of that which, partaking separately, each to herself, I partake also separately. Be patient that I address you in a poem. There is no other fit medium. The mind lives there. It is uncertain, can trick us, can leave us agonized. But for resources, what can equal it? There is nothing. We should be lost without its wings to fly off upon. The mind is the cause of our distresses. But of it we can build anew. Oh, something more than it flies off to a woman's world of crossed sticks, stopping thought, a new world. It is only a new mind. And the mind and the poem are all a piece. Two young women to be snared, odor of box, to bind and hold them for the mind's labors. All women are fated similarly, facing men, and there is always another, such as I, who loves them, what loves all women, but finds himself touching them like other men, often confused. I have two sons, the husbands of these women, who live also in a world of love, apart. Shall this odor of box in the heat not also touch them, fronting a world of women from which they are debarred? By the very sense which draw them on, gain against easy access. In our family we stammer unless, half mad, we come to speech at last. And I am not a young man. My love encumbers me. It is a love less than a young man's love, but like this box odor, more penetrant, indefinitely more penetrant, and in that sense not to be resisted. There is in the hard give and take of a man's life with a woman a thing which is not the stress itself, but beyond and above. That something that wants to rise and shake itself free. We are not chickadees on a bare limb. With a worm in the mouth, the worm is in our brains and concerns them, and not food for our offspring wants to disrupt our thought and throw it to the newspapers or anywhere. There is, in short, a counter-stress, born of the sexual shock which survives it, consonant with the moon, to keep in its own mind. There is, of course, more. Women are not alone in that, at least. While this healing odor is abroad, one can write a poem. Staying here in the country, on an old farm, we eat our breakfasts on a balcony under an elm. The shrubs below us are neglected, and there, penned in, or he would eat the garden, lives a pet goose who tilts his head sidewise and looks up at us, a very quiet old fellow who writes no poems, fine mornings we sit there, while birds come and go, a pair of robins is building a nest. For the second time this season, men, against their reason, speak of love sometimes when they are old, it is all they can do. Or watch a heavy goose who waddles, slopping noisily in the mud of his pool. So, for those of you who've just joined us, Mark, Alexeri, and Brother Rob, um, we're reading William Carlos Williams, The Desert Music. And a little note, the little preface to this writes that he was composing these in his old age. The first copyright was for 1949. He was born in the 1880s. The final poem, or the final copyright on this, was 1954. So this was when he was well into his 70s. And he's writing from that aged perspective. I think it's still rather pretty. Although I shouldn't be making comments on age, perhaps. And yeah, you can see that. You can see him reflecting on his life and on the lives of his children, even, which is very interesting. Kind of a unique, not unique, but an interesting poetic angle to take. Something I do not have access to. So we learn, we read. Yes, Brother Rob is great. Writes some great poetry. Check him out. Oh my goodness, I'm spilling. I found this American Strong Ale today. Remember the beer discourse? Okay, we don't need to go back to this because I talked about this last time. But there was a beer discourse on Substack. And it was not agreed upon. It was claimed strongly and loudly and to a great audience that Coors was the best beer in America. And as a child of the Pacific Northwest, of the craft beer Eden, I disagree. But I found this American Strong Ale. That's 9%. It's called Tap Out. It's great. And it's great because it's high percentage, but not a stout. And I'm kind of not in the mood for stouts. But alas, let's read the orchestra. The precise counterpart of a cacophony of bird calls, lifting the sun almighty into his sphere woodwinds, clarinet and violins, sound a prolonged ah, the sun is about to rise and shed his beams as he has always done upon us. Drudges and those who live at ease, women and men, upon the old, upon children and the sick, who are about to die and are indeed dead in their beds. To whom his light is lost forever, the cello raises his bass note, manfully in the treble din. Ah, and ah, together unattuned, seeking a common tone. Love is that common tone. Shall raise his fiery head and sound his note. The purpose of an orchestra is to organize those sounds and hold them to an assembled order in spite of the wrong note. Well, shall we think or listen? Is there a sound addressed, not wholly to the ear? We have closed our eyes. We do not hear it through our eyes. It is not a flute note either. It is the relation of a flute note to a drum. I am wide awake. The mind is listening. The ear is alerted, but the ear is in a half reluctant mood, stretches and yawns. And so the banked violins in three tiers enliven the scene, pizzicato, for a short memory or to make the listener listen. The theme is repeated, stressing a variant. It is a principle of music to repeat the theme, repeat and repeat again. As the pace mounts, the theme is difficult but no more difficult than the facts to be resolved. Repeat and repeat the theme. It all develops to be until the thought is dissolved in tears. Our dreams have been assaulted in by a memory that will not sleep. The French horns interpose their voices. I love you. My heart is innocent, and this, the first day of the world. Say to them, man has hitherto survived because he was ignorant. To know how to realize his wishes, now that he can realize them, he must either change them or perish. Now is the time, in spite of the wrong note. I love you. My heart is innocent. And this is the first and last day of the world. The birds twitter now anew, but a design surmounts their twittering. It is a design of the man that makes them twitter. It is a design. Hmm. I thought that was lovely. That was a great poem. The Orchestra by William Carlos Williams. Bodhi's joined us. Um, Bodhi writes haiku and haibun, some of my favorite poetry on Substack. Glad to see you. And we're reading some William Carlos Williams. Take a breath, settle the lungs, I guess. It's interesting because these poems are several pages long, but they're very spacious. Um, they're following an interesting pattern of line spacing and indentation. It's like a line, then hanging line almost, indented twice, and then another hanging line indented past that, which almost works to separate into stanzas, maybe like blocks of poetry, almost in clauses, but not quite. It's really fascinating. I don't know. Just looking at the formal properties here. What's up, brother Rob? Mm. All right. Yeah, this is good, William Carlos Williams. I think maybe it's not like the vibrant flesh of his poetic canon collection cycle, but it's very easy to read, very pleasant. It brings me to some thoughts of T.S. Eliot, although, well, perhaps he had just read the Four Quartets, because I'm getting some of that themology, but those are eternal themes, so I won't speak on that too much. But it's very pleasant, very nice. Let's read For Eleanor and Bill Monahan. Mother of God, Our Lady, the heart is an unruly master. Forgive us our sins as we forgive those who have sinned against us. We submit ourselves to your rule as the flowers in May submit themselves to your holy rule against that impossible springtime when men shall be the flowers spread at your feet. As far as spring is from winter, so are we from you now. We have not come easily to your environs, but painfully across sands that have scored our feet. That which we have suffered was for us to suffer now. In the winter of the year, the birds know how to escape suffering. By flight are gone. Man alone is that creature who cannot escape suffering by flight. I do not come to you, save that I confess to being half man and half woman. I have seen the ivy cling to a piece of crumbled wall so that you cannot tell by which either stands. This is to say, if she to whom I cling is loosened, both of us go down. Mother of God, I have seen you stoop to a merest flower and raise it and press it to your cheek. I could have called out joyfully, But you were too far off. You are a woman, and it was a woman's gesture. I declare it boldly, with my heart in my teeth and my knees knocking together, yet I declare it, and by God's word, it is no lie. Make us humble and obedient to his rule. There are men who, as they live, fling caution to the wind, and women praise them and love them for it, cruel as the claws of a cat. You have no lover now in the bare skies to bring you flowers, to whisper to you under a hedge, howbeit you are young and fit to be loved. The moon which they have vulgarized recently is still your planet, as it was Venus's before. You, what do they think they will attain by their ships that death has not already given them? Their ships should be directed inward. But I am an old man. I have had enough. The female principle of the world is my appeal and the extremity to which I have come. O Clemens, O Pia, O Dulcis, Maria. Hmm, that was very beautiful. To a dog injured in the street, it is myself, not the poor beast lying there, yelping with pain, that brings me to myself with a start, as at the explosion of a bomb that has laid all the world waste. I do nothing but sing about it. And so I am massaged from my pain. A drowsy numbness drowns my sense, as if of hemlock I had drunk. I think of the poetry of Rene Char and all he must have seen and suffered that has brought him to speak only of sedgy rivers, of daffodils and tulips, whose roots they water, even to the free-flowing river that laves the rootlets of those sweet-scented flowers that people the Milky Way. I remember Norma, our English setter of my childhood, her silky ears and expressive eyes. She had a litter of pups one night in our pantry, and I kicked one of them, thinking in my alarm that they were biting her breasts to destroy her. I remember also a dead rabbit lying harmlessly on the outspread palm of a hunter's hand as I stood by, watching, when he took a knife and with a laugh thrust it into the animal's private parts. I almost fainted. Why should I think of that now? The cries of a dying dog are to be blotted out as best I can. Rene Char, you are a poet who believes in the power of beauty to right all wrongs. I believe it also. With invention and courage, we shall surpass the pitiful dumb beasts. Let all man believe it. You have taught me also to believe it. Wow. That was my favorite so far. And it's not even close. I resonated really closely and deeply with that poem. Let me write down Rene Char because he seems like someone I need to check out. Here's my list. Can you read that? Probably not. My handwriting is illegible. But I will be reading Rene Char now. Um, and yeah, the expressions of the rivers, really beautiful. Daffodils and tulips, whose roots they water. The sweet scented flowers that people the Milky Way. That's lovely. That's great poetic imagery. And the dead rabbit lying harmlessly in the palm of a hunter's hand. I don't know how many people have hunted, but it's very humbling and smallening. That's a terrible word. I don't know. to hold a dead animal that has been hunted. It's very, I don't know, intimate in a way, and he strikes at that very, precisely. But anyway, let's read The Yellow Flower. What shall I say, because talk I must? That I have found a cure for a sick. I have found no cure for the sick, but this crooked flower, which only to look upon all men are cured. This is that flower for which all men secretly sing their hymns of praise. This is that sacred flower. Can this be so? A flower so crooked and obscure? It is a mustard flower, and not a mustard flower, a single spray, topped the deformed stem of fleshy leaves in this freezing weather under glass. An ungainly flower and an unnatural one in this climate. What can be the reason that has picked me out to hold me open-mouthed, rooted before this window in the cold, my will drained from me so that I have only eyes for these yellow, twisted petals? That the sight, though strange to me, must be a common one, is clear. There are such flowers with such leaves native to some climate, which they call their own. But why the torture and the escape through the flower? Is it as if Michelangelo had conceived the subject of his slaves from this, or might have done so, and did he not make the marble bloom? I am sad, as he was sad in his heroic mood, but also I have eyes that are made to see, and if they did see ruin for myself and all that I hold dear, they see also through the eyes and through the lips and the tongue the power to free myself, and speak of it as if Michelangelo through his hands had the same, and if greater, power, which leaves to account for the tortured bodies of the slaves themselves and the tortured body of my flower, which is not a mustard flower at all, but some unrecognized and unearthly flower, for me to naturalize and acclimate and choose it for my own. These poems keep ending so abruptly, and it's throwing me off. I'm getting into my stride, and then they end, and I'm not giving the end the right intonation. It's kind of frustrating me. It's not really frustrating me, but it keeps giving me a jolt when I read the line and turn the page and it's a new poem. Free Radio Rulo has joined us. Yeah, we're preaching it. We're out here reading poetry to the people, with the people, alongside the people, for the people. Um, and yeah, we're reading William Carlos Williams, The Desert Music, and other poems, importantly. Mm, very good stuff. I was just reading the flavor profile for this beer I'm drinking, and the first word is big, which is an interesting adjective to use for a flavor profile. But it's not wrong. Um, let's read The Host by William Carlos Williams. According to their need, this tall Negro evangelist at a separate table from the rest of the party. These two Irish nuns, to be subsequently described, and this white-haired Anglican have come witlessly to partake of the host laid for them and for me by the tired waitress. It is all, since we must eat, made sacred by our common need. The evangelist's assistants are most open in their praise, though covert, as would be seemly in such a public place. The nuns are all black, a side view. The cleric, his head bowed to reveal his unruly pull dines alone. My eyes are restless. The evangelists eat well, fried oysters and whatnot. At this railway restaurant, the sisters are soon satisfied. One, on leaving, looking straight before her under steadfast brows, reveals blue eyes. I myself have brown eyes and a milder mouth. There is nothing to eat. Seek it where you will, but the body of the Lord, the blessed plants, and the sea yield it to the imagination, intact, and by that force it becomes real, bitterly. To the poor animals who suffer and die, that we may live, the well-fed evangels, the narrow-lipped and bright-eyed nuns, the tall, white-haired Anglican, proclaim it by their appetites, as do I also, chopping with my worn-out teeth, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. No matter how well we are fed, how daintily we put the food to our lips, it is all according to the imagination. Say what you will of it, only the imagination is real. They have imagined it, therefore it is so. Of the evangelist, with the long legs characteristic of the race, only the docile women of the party smile at me when, with my eyes, I accosted them, the nuns. But after all, I saw only a face, a young face, cut off at the brows. It was a simple story. The cleric, plainly, from a good school, interested me more. A man with whom I might carry on a conversation. No one was there save for the food, which I alone, being a poet, could have given them. But I had only my eyes with which to speak. That was interesting. Hmm. The concentration on the eyes and the mouths, almost as portals to this interaction with religion found through food. Really interesting metaphor. Hmm. Brings to mind, completely randomly, there's in the middle of nowhere, in like southern Washington, there is an Orthodox, um, like, I don't even know what the word would be, a church and a nunnery, um, somewhere where they live. I'm missing the word. But anyway, I found it randomly while like driving around the back roads, like 2 days away from home. Um, and they had a little shop with a bunch of Greek food. It was wonderful. And the strange things you find in the Pacific Northwest, I suppose, is the moral of that story. Going to nowhere. But I digress. Let's read more William Carlos Williams. It's gonna bother me that I can't remember the word. Someone here knows. A convent. Convent. Thanks, brother Rob. Um, yes, that's closer. I appreciate it. Okay. Deep religious faith is the name of this next poem, in line with the conversation, I suppose, and the last poem. Past death, past rainy days, or the distraction of lady smocks all silver white beyond the remote borders of poetry itself, if it does not drive us, it is vain. Yet it is that which made El Greco paint his green and distorted saints and live lean. It is what in life drives us to praise music and the old, or sit by a friend in his last hours. All that which makes the pear ripen or the poet's line come true. Invention is the heart of it. Without the quirks and oddness of invention, the paralytic is confirmed in his paralysis. It is from a northern and half savage country where the religion is hate. There, the citizens are imprisoned, the rose may not be worshipped, or the poet to look to it for benefit. And the night a storm of gale proportions came up. No one was there to envisage a field of daisies. There were bellowings and roarings. From a child's book of fairy tales, the rumble of a distant bombing or a bee. Shame on our poets. They have caught the prevalent fever, impressed by the laboratory, but they have forgotten the flower, which goes beyond all laboratories. They have quit the job of invention. The imagination has fallen asleep in a poppy cup. That was great. As a poet, personally, I thought that was great. What's that line? Okay. All that which makes the pear ripen, or the poet's line come true. Invention is the heart of it. The oddness of invention. Hmm. Love that. That's great. Okay. The garden. It is far to a sissy, but not too far. Over this garden, brooding over this garden, there is a kindly spirit. Brothers to the poor, and who is poorer than he who is in love when the birds are nesting in the spring of the year? They came to eat from his hand who had nothing, and yet from his plenty he fed them all mankind grew to be his debtors. A simple story. Love is in season. At such a time, hyacinth time, the hospital garden, the time of the coral flowered, the early salmon pink clusters. It is the time also of abandoned birds' nests before the sparrows start to tear them apart against the advent of that bounty from which they will build anew. All about them on the lawns, the young couples embrace, as in a tale by Boccaccio. They are careless, under license of the disease which has restricted them to these grounds. Saint Francis forgive them and all the lovers, whoever they may be. They have seen a great light. It springs from their own body foreheads. The light is sequestered there. By these enclosing walls, they are divided from their fellows. It is a bounty from last year's nest. St. Francis, who befriended the wild birds by their aid, and those who have nothing and live by the holy light of love that rules, blocking despair over this garden. Time passes. The pace has slackened, but with the falling off of pace, the scene has altered. The lovers raise their heads in that which has come over them. It is summer now. The broad sun shines, blinded by the light. They walk bewildered, seeking between the leaves for a vantage from which to view the advancing season. They are incredulous of their own cure and half-minded to escape into the dark again. The scene indeed has changed. By St. Francis, the whole scene has changed. They glimpse the surrounding sky and the whole countryside. Filled with terror, they seek a familiar flower at which to warm themselves, but the whole field accosts them. They hide their eyes, ashamed, before that bounty peering through their fingers timidly. The saint is watching, his eyes filled with pity. The year is still young, but not so young as they, who face the fears with which they are confronted, reawakened after lovers' first folly. They resemble children, roused from a long sleep. Summer is here, right enough. The saint has tactfully withdrawn. One, emboldened, parting the leaves before her, stands in the full sunlight, alone, shading her eyes as her heart beats wildly and her mind drinks up the full meaning of it all. That was lovely. That was a great poem. The Garden by William Carlos Williams. I fully enjoyed that. Mm. Is there a title poem to this collection? Because I would like to read it. Theocritus, The Desert Music. Oh, it's awfully long. Do we dare? Do we dare read a? Okay, it's surely not gonna be. Oh, it's 10 pages? More than that? Nearly 20 pages? Am I brave enough today? I don't think I am. I'm sorry to say. Oh gosh. Well, if Brother Rob dares, perhaps I have the strength to dare as well. But it is nearly 20 pages, and I am kind of itching to write at this juncture. So I think I'm going to read the second to last poem in the collection, and then we will read the title poem at a later date in conjunction with someone else. That's a compromise. I can get behind that. Okay. We're going to read Theocritus, Idyll 1. It seems as though this is a translation from the Greek. So let us explore. And interestingly, okay, I mentioned the structure of these poems beforehand. Um, and let me just go here. Let's take a look. Okay. So all of these poems have a start or the structure is a main line, a hanging line indented, and a hanging line indented beyond that. All right. All these poems have followed that structure. And it's doing something for the space. It's, making the reading experience different. But I find it incredibly fascinating that he translated this poem into the same structure. Um, and we can assume that he took a poetic liberty there. We can infer that the original poem was not written with that structure. Um, Not that I'm a scholar on Greek poetry, but I think that is a fascinating um, tribute and expansion of the work which he is translating. And I'm not a translator, so I probably shouldn't comment on translation. But I prefer when a translation moves further toward the translator's interpretation or intention with the poem than remaining stringent to the original poem. Um, Again, I'm not a translator, so I can't really speak to this with authority. But I appreciate when a poem is not forced to work in a language, but encouraged toward an interpretation, if that makes sense. Yeah, Brother Rob's a fan of more liberal translations, and that's where I am at. I um rewrote a Rilke translation the other day. Actually, do I have it? Um, yes, I do. Okay. There's a poem. Okay, so if anyone's watching wants a book of poetry, buy this. A Book of Luminous Things. It is absolutely incredible. It's an anthology collected together by Czesław Miłosz. Um, Shoot. Brother Rob says you should be more faithful if it's never been translated before, and I think that is a respectful stance to take because you're trying to be true to the poetry. Um, yes, I respect that. Oh my goodness, where's Rilke? 195. That's our page. I'm really just trying to figure out who translated this initially. 180, 195. Okay. Walter Arndt. But Going Blind. I rewrote it in conjunction with what was the poem? Pinpricks, maybe? Probably not. No, that was a different one. It was Moonbeams. It was Moonbeams. So I wrote that poem, inspired by this, Rilke, Going Blind. And I rewrote the translation to better suit it to my style of poetry, which is kind of a fun task. I'd kind of recommend that exercise if anyone wants to practice poetry or work on improving like their line edits, because that was really interesting to see how the translator initially wrote the poem and then how I built off of that, trying to be more true to my style and how I envision poetry should be written. Anyway, I digress. That was quite the tangent. Let's read these pages. Theocritus, Idyll 1. Thyrsis, the whisper of the wind in that pine tree goat herd, is sweet as the murmur of live water, likewise your flute notes. After Pan, you will bear away second prize, and if they take the goat with his horns, the she-goat is yours. But if he choose the she-goat, the kid will fall to your lot, and the flesh of the kid is dainty before they begin milking them. Goat herd, your song is sweeter, shepherd, than the music of the water as it plashes from that high face of that rock. If the muses choose the young, you shall receive a stall-fed lamb as your reward, but if they prefer the lamb, you shall have the ewe for second prize. Thyrsis, will not, goat herd, or in the name, my apologies, let me restart that. Thyrsis, will you not, goat herd, in the nymph's name, take your place on this sloping knoll among the tamarisks and pipe for me while I tend my sheep? Goatherd, no, shepherd, nothing doing. It is not for us to be heard during the noon hush. We dread Pan, who for a fact is stretched out somewhere. Dog tired from the chase, his mood is bitter, anger ready at his nostrils. But, Thyrsis, since you are good at singing of the afflictions of Daphnis, and have most deeply meditated the pastoral mode, come here, let us sit down under this elm, facing Priapus and the mountain fairies, here where the shepherds come to try themselves out. By the oak trees, you may sing as you sang that day, facing Chromis out of Libya. I will let you milk, yes, 3 times over, a goat that is the mother of twins, and even then, when she has sucked her kids, her milk fills 2 pails. I will give besides, new made, as a 2-eared bowl of ivy wood, rubbed with beeswax that smacks still of the knife of the carver. Round its upper edges winds the ivy, strewn with yellow flowers, and about it is twisted a tendril joyful with saffron fruit. Within is limned a girl, as fair a thing as the gods have made. Dressed in a sweeping gown, her hair is confined in a snood. Beside her, 2 blonde-haired youths with alternate speech are contending, but her heart is untouched now, She glances at one, smiling, and now, lightly, she flings the other a thought with their eyes, by reason of love's long vigil, are heavy, but in their labors all is vain. In addition, there is fashioned there an ancient fisherman, and a rock, a rugged rock on which, with might and main, the old man poises a great net for the cast. As one who puts his whole heart into it, one would say that he was fishing with the full strength of his limbs, so big do his muscles stand out about the neck. Gray-haired though he be, he has the strength of a young man, now separated from the sea-broken old man by a narrow interval, is a vineyard heavy with fire-red clusters, and on a rude wall sits a small boy guarding them. Round him 2 she-foxes are sulking. One goes the length of the vine rows to eat the grapes, while the other brings all her cunning to bear, by what has been set down, vowing she will never quit the lad until she leaves him bare and breakfastless. But the boy is plating a pretty cage of locust stalks and asphodel, fitting in the reeds, and cares less for his scrip and the vines than he takes delight in his plating. All about the cup is draped the mild anthus, a miracle of varied work, a thing for you to marvel at. I paid a Caledonian ferryman, a goat and a great white cream cheese for the bowl. It is still virgin to me, its lip has never touched mine. To gain my desire, I would gladly give this cup, if you, my friend, will sing for me that delightful song. I hold nothing back. Begin, my friend, for you cannot, you may be sure. Take your song, which drives all things out of mind, with you to the other world. Hmm. That was a beautiful dialogue between the shepherd and, oh, what's his name? Thyrsis. Between Thyrsis and the goat herd. Fascinating personification. Very pretty. And that was a highly productive reading. I felt like I learned a lot about William Carlos Williams as a person and soul, a brain, a psyche, and a poet. And I can imagine myself in due time being somewhat influenced by what he has done here. I like a lot of it, especially To a Dog Injured in the Street and The Garden. Those were wonderful poems. So, thank you for joining us for Poetry After Dark. Good night.